Hi, my name is Trudy Veremu, and I am a BA Songwriting second year student at ICMP. I'm also an artist. I started my professional career, when I was signed at 19 by my first management. But as a writer, I had been writing all my life. I never really saw any distinction or understood that there was a distinction between being a vocalist and a songwriter. I had always assumed that all the singers that I knew were songwriters, and it came as a surprise later on. Of course, like everybody else, I enjoyed doing karaoke, or I enjoyed, doing a performance here and there where I would sing a song that clearly wasn't my song, but I was very aware of that, more from the fact that I knew that I couldn't emulate Whitney Houston singing. So it pushed me from a very young age to start to develop what I like to write about. I also had a great love for Neneh Cherry. Was probably one of the first alternative non-African artists, because I grew up listening to Miriam Makeba in my family home. And so Neneh Cherry was the first alternative artist that I heard, and I really liked the fact that she seemed to be pushing the boundaries of what song was, without necessarily being hip hop, which was something that wasn't around where I was growing up. I was growing up traveling with my family, but mainly at this point in time in my teens in Southeast Asia. When I was signed to my management, I went from, recording myself tape to tape with a cassette tape in my bedroom, recording one vocal and then overdubbing that with another tape to do backing vocals. And I had no sense in my mind that these things were called BDs or anything like that. I just knew that I wanted to create this sound, and I had these melodic ideas, and I had these vocal ideas, and I just wanted to put them down. So I went from that to a studio environment, working with very established dance producers who were very helpful in helping me understand that I had to shape my songs to what a producer or an artist wants. It was a great exercise for me going forward, because for the next couple of years I ended up working with dance artists and producers and rock artists and various other hip-hop artists. And I was able to go from literally sometimes creating absolute duds, because I was desperately trying to understand the genre that they were working in, and then sort of curtail my writing to that. And sometimes it just didn't come. The inspiration didn't come. In my search of understanding that, why it didn't come, and sometimes having a strong knock in my confidence, I understood that I was best when I was writing about things that made me feel emotional. And so for the reason why those songs weren't coming was because I thought, well, they're a hip hop artist, and this is a jump up song, so it has to be something that's positive. Well, I come from a very unique and very alternative childhood, and I don't really feel that energy in that kind of way. So let me try to create, a party scene in my head that, that has never happened. It would come out as duds. And what I realized was I was best when I was just being honest, even if the person turned around and said, it's not for me. With the dance producers, a lot of times they wouldn't say it's not for me. They would say, I like those 2 lines, the rest I'm not keeping. And I ended up with a bag full of material that was very emotional and very personal, that I just kind of kept to the back as I got better at honing my actual talent of writing. For my personal writing nowadays, I tend to write about my family, my emotions. I spent a lot of time in foster care. I was orphaned very young. And so because of that, those things were hugely affecting to my life. They affected my life a lot. And it's those things that I want to talk about. I also spent time, once I was old enough, finding out about my heritage. I was born in Zimbabwe during the colonial rule when it was called Rhodesia. I learned about my father and his time in war before he passed away. I learned about the tribes that we come from, and we're mixed African heritage. So we come from various tribes that couldn't be, they're about as similar as a Spanish person to a Swedish person, like just completely different. They just happen to be on the same continent, as different cultures, different foods, different language, and sort of understanding the journey of how they all came to be in this individual. So I'm Indebele, I'm Shona, and I'm part Chiwe, and I'm part San, or Twa, as they're called in Zimbabwe. And possibly more, because it's one of those things where people migrate and mix, and so it depends how far back we can go. And also I'm gathering information all the time myself, so I decided to focus myself on talking about those things, because those are the things that interested me, and that had a massive effect on my writing. Especially once I started investigating the rituals and the performance and the theater, because a lot of times within these tribes, their music and their performance and the writing that they do is not necessarily just purely for entertainment. It is for the purpose of giving information. In one of the tribes, they have an individual that they consider the poet. And their culture, for instance, talks about how you should never give any information to anybody, especially not their leaders, their king or their chiefs. You should never give any information to anybody negatively. It always has to be in a positive way, because if you don't do it that way, that you damage their soul and their spirit. So it's important to be poetic. So this is the Indebele tribe. In the Indebele tribe, it is deeply important for you to try to create some poetry in how you say things and how you explain them. And the poet is a very revered person, because they don't only inform the king or the chief of what is going on, and the community of what is going on, but they also are the ones who archive the history. So if there's a war, two factions or two clans of Indebele are fighting, they'll have a poet there. Each one will have a poet who will be taking mental notes, because they never wrote anything down. So what happened is these individuals developed the ability to create poetry and to effectively rhyme and create and write off the top of their heads as a way to create memory, so that they could then poetically share this with other members of their community. And, knowing things like that really helped me in how I approached my writing. Each tribe, like I said, has different methods. So I looked at each of their different methods and where they came from, why they were creating these songs like that. And that really influenced my writing. So my culture and my heritage had a massive effect on my approach to my writing for the recent past, as well as actually working directly with the tribes themselves to try to create a little bit of a palette with my music that I write. And the music I write is sort of an electronic, alternative pop music that I do together now, infused with these elements of Afrofuturistic elements that are in there. What do I think are like 3 tips that I would that I would give to anybody? The first would be to truly write from your heart. As in, I'm sure there are other people that it works for them to sort of create something out of thin air, out of nothing. And all of us can, we can all rhyme and we can all create something, but I truly believe for something to have its truest essence, it has to come from something that you connect with. So whether it's just something that you observed, sometimes I'm on a bus or I'm in a car and I see the light hit a tree in a certain way and it makes me feel something, and that makes me want to write. Sometimes I'll hear a sound and it it reverberates in my head, and I can't let it go. I once took a holiday to a beautiful country where they had lots of churches and monasteries, and my favorite thing was going around and just seeing what my soul would pop out, just because each one of these rooms had such a different resonance. It brought up certain emotions, and therefore my writing was completely impacted by that. So that would be my first tip, is to write from your heart. Write what inspires you. The second tip is, once you've written what inspires you, is to try to learn some skills so that you can help mold or shape your actual song. One of the best parts about being on the BA songwriting, because often people ask me, as I've worked as a songwriter, why come to BA songwriting? And one of the major reasons that I came was because I realized that I didn't have the tools. So if a song be a clay pot, I kind of knew how to create the shape, but in terms of, decorating it and taking pieces off or thinning out the edges, or, whatever metaphoric images you want to create, I realized that I didn't have the tools to do that, and that I needed to know the tools. So like learning a language, the more you know a language, the more vocabulary you have, the better you can be at executing, at communicating yourself with other people. So for me, having those songwriting tools, knowing all the different ways that you can write a song, or that you can edit, or seeing how people that you really love, breaking down like, oh, Bjork writes like this in these 5 songs, and then this song, it's different. And then, Tori Amos did this. For me, it was very, very useful. And it is very, very useful for taking myself from this very natural, universal kind of experience of writing to something that's a little bit more technical. And the final tip I would give would be about lyrics. I'm a lyricist. I love to talk. I love to write poems, and I love to express myself. So to put myself in a position where, I've got a piece of music, and now I can have a rhythm, and I can have an extra layer of emotions on that, it usually makes me want to just write loads of words. And I have learned that working with pretty much all the producers I've ever worked with, but specifically on Tin the Play, is that sometimes less is more. And sometimes, there is 2 metaphors that are required, not 10, to make the same point. And that's a skill in itself, to be able to sort of say, you know what, we don't need to go over this again in the second verse, or this song really does not need to be 5.5 minutes. Why? It is to know when you're just being indulgent, or when a song really needs that more, I recently wrote a song that literally had only 3 instruments on it, which, as somebody who does electronic, basically dance music, though it be downbeat and trip hop at times, is kind of unheard of. But it was great. I mean, the way I affected it made sense. And every time I kept trying to put more things on, because I decided in my mind that it needed more, the song just didn't sound great. So that would be my third tip, is sometimes less is more. I feel that for me, the more vocabulary you can get, whether it is telling a story about my family, whether it's talking about my heritage, whether it is writing a song for another artist, the more information I have, the more vocabulary I have, the better I can at creating a piece of work that is authentic and is well communicated. Thank you for watching this video, and I hope that the information that I've given has been useful to you. If there's anything more you'd like to know, or if you have any questions, please contact the admissions team at ICMP. And good luck with your writing and your singing, or whatever musical journey that you're on. And I hope to see you soon at ICMP.